Hello, this is Anjana and welcome to the fourth session on Ruby on Rails. In the previous session, we saw how to use resources. We also did a form submission and inspected the params hash. In this session, we will learn the concept of migrations and see how we can save data to the database. Recall in our last session, we created a new and create action for our kitchen store application to be able to create a new product after giving it values. Our create action simply render the form values as text to the browser. Now let us do something more substantial with the form parameters. Let us work on saving the value to the database. For this, we would need to first configure our database to use MySQL. Let's open the database.yml file located in the kitchen store config directory. Rails uses an SQLite 3 database for data storage by default because it is a zero configuration database that just works. You will see here in this file, it is divided into three sections: development, test, and production. Let's start by modifying the development section. Let's add the username and password that we had set our MySQL server to. And specify the host as localhost. Let's copy over the changes to test and production. And save it. Let's also change the database name to something more meaningful, like the kitchen store dev. Kitchen store test and kitchen store prod. Let's change the SQLite 3 adapter to MySQL 2 and copy over the changes to test and production environments and save it. Now we need the MySQL 2 gem to be installed in order for this to function. So let's add that gem to the gem file. We can comment out the gem SQLite 3 and add a line gem MySQL 2 and save it. Now it's time to run the bundle install to install the newly added MySQL 2 gem. So let's switch over to our command prompt and run bundle install. This command will install the newly added MySQL 2 gem for us using Bundler, which is the default gem manager for Rails. Now let's check our installation and also create the database using this configuration file. Let's execute a command rake db create to create the database. And now let's move on to the create method. The create method that we had added to the products controller should take the values submitted by the online form, which would contain information for a product, and save it to the database. It should also return to the view the saved product information. So let's go back to the products controller that we were working on in our previous session. And here, this was the new and the create actions that we had created. In order to save the product information to the database, we need an ORM model called product. There should also be a corresponding table called products. So let's use one of Rails generators to generate the model product. Let's switch back to our command prompt and execute Rails generate model product and give it the attributes, which is name string, description text, and price float. This will create a model product and a migration file inside the db migrate directory. Now, let's talk a little bit about migrations. Migrations are Ruby classes that are designed to make it simple to create and modify database tables. Let's open the migration file that was generated. Migration file names include a timestamp to ensure that they are processed in the order that they are created. And this file contains a change method, and inside the change method there is a call to create table products with these attributes. The change method will be called when you run this migration. This migration will add a table called products with strings, columns, with string, columns, name and price, and a text column for description. A primary key column called ID will also be added implicitly, as it's the default primary key for all active record models. The timestamp macros add two columns created at and updated at. These special columns are automatically managed by active record if they exist. Note that we define the change that we want to happen moving forward in time. Before this migration is run, there will not be a products table. After this table will exist, active record knows how to reverse this migration as well. If we roll this migration back, it will remove the table. Now, if you open your product class, you will notice it's empty. Active record is smart enough to automatically map column names to model attributes, which means you don't have to declare attributes inside Rails models, as that will be done automatically by active record. At this point, you can use the rake command to run the migration. So let's execute rake db migrate. Rails will execute this migration command and tell you it created the products table. Because you're working in the development environment by default, this command will apply to the database defined in the development section of your config database.yml file. If you would like to execute migrations in another environment, for instance in test, you must explicitly pass it when invoking the command. So in which case you would execute the command rake db migrate and then specify the parameter rails underscore env equal to test. Let us switch back to the products controller. We need to change the create action to use the new product model to save the data into the database. Let's add the line product.new, instantiating a new product object with the product params that we got from the request on submitting the form. Now let's define this method product params. This params require product and permit the attributes of product by the name of name, description, and price. And let's make this method private, as it does not need to be accessed by unrelated classes. So this will create a new product object with these parameters. Now, the next thing that we would need to do is to save this product. To do that, we would need to first assign this to an instance variable. And instance variables that you declare in your action are available in the view. So let's call save on this. Now, something to note about the params require permit line here is this approach prevents an attacker from setting the model's attributes by manipulating the hash passed to the model. Now, earlier we had rendered the params of product as text to the view file. Now, let's render the product attributes of the saved product. So let's change this line to at product, which will contain the saved product, and let's see its attributes. Let's inspect its attributes. So this will be returned as text to the browser, and there is no view file for this create at present. This is rendered as text to the browser. So let's start our server and navigate to this particular form. Let me open up Chrome. And navigate to HTTP localhost products new. And since I have not started the web server, nothing shows up. So let's start the web server here. And then refresh the page. And let's add a casserole to our kitchen store collection and add a description. Let's set a price and save the product. So this goes to the products page, where here you will see the saved product information along with the ID of the product in the products table, telling us that the product was successfully saved into the database. With this, our fourth Ruby on Rails session comes to an end. Summarizing the topics we covered in this tutorial, we learned about migrations, we learned how to configure the database, also learned how to persist data into the database. Now it is time for a small trivia. 1. What is the active record migration method that you would use to write migrations? This method is reversible for most of your migrations. 2. What is the default database used by Rails for data storage? Please write your answers in the comment section below. With this, let me wrap up this session. Thanks for watching and bye for now.